So I'm back out of the car, and today I'd like to do a leak down test on it. Leak down test is a good way to check condition of the engine. Checks or gives a basic feedback about the valves, seats, valves, cylinder rings, potential leaks from head gaskets, etc. So I've done the compression test, and the compression test, based on the gauge that I had when I did it on video, is showing fairly low compression. It's pretty much on the limit of what the instruction manual says about this engine. So I thought I'd do a leak down test as well, just to double confirm. Now, I did it after I did the compression test, so I had most of this gear off, most of the all of this stuff off. So to do a leak down test, the engine needs to be warm so that everything is at operating temperature. So I've quickly just put it all back on, warmed up the engine, and now I'm ready to take it all apart again to do the leak down test. So here's the leak down tester that I've got. It's just a cheap, simple one, but it'll give us a little bit of an indication on the health of the engine. As you can see, there's two dials. There's the feed pressure and the amount of leak. So all it has is an orifice in between, and you're just measuring the differences between the end of this being closed, so fully sealed, and that's where you set your gauge. And then after that, when you connect it to the engine, you'll see how much percentage of leak from the set pressure is on this gauge. So that'll show you roughly what the leakage is. So just say you had 100% of air going in, and you're losing 20% through the piston rings or valve seats. It'll show as 20%, which is a low amount of leakage. Remember that an engine is not fully sealed, hence why you've got crankcase breathing hoses and all the rest of that, because there is a little bit of leak through it. Now, if we start getting down to this level, the high level, it means that there's a lot of leakage around somewhere in the engine, and that's not good. So look, I'm just seeing if this engine is healthy enough for me to turn up the boost, or do I not, and start looking at an engine rebuild. So the engine's warmed up. Let's take all of these ignition coils off, take the spark plugs out, and start performing the test. So I've now got all the spark plugs and the ignition coils out. First thing I need to do the leak down test is to set the engine at top dead center for the first cylinder. So according to the engine manual, the way to do that is take off the oil cap, and what you need to check for is that the camshaft lobe is facing toward the intake side, which from what I can see is not there. So when you set it to top dead center with the intake cam lobe facing the intake side, what that means is that all the valves are closed and it's ready for the ignition cycle. So how we can do that is, I've got a socket here, and so that I can do this from the top, I'm going to put this on the alternator sprocket, on the alternator nut, so I can rotate the engine. So I'm going to set that there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a rod. Now, preferably put something that is not going to scratch the end of the piston, so maybe wood or plastic. Unfortunately, I've only got access to this, so I'll put this in just to see where it is in the compression stroke. So it's nearly at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this and see how it's coming up. Now, if we look inside there, you probably can't see it. it's still not at top dead center on the intake stroke. Although that is moving, that is at the top, just means that it could be at a different stroke of the engine. Now what I can see is that the intake valve's closed on the inside there. The cam lobe is actually facing the exhaust side. So that must mean that it's on the exhaust stroke. So I've got to rotate this engine a little bit more and set it so that the cam lobe is pointing to the intake side. Off we go, and as you can see, this rod will start going down. Looking at camshaft. Alright, let me just set this camera down and I'll get it to the right stroke. So now I've actually set it to the right position, rod's at full extension. I can actually see, if I take this rod out, I can see the top of the piston, which you probably can't see. Look there, you can see, it's hard to see. But more importantly, the cam lobe, I can just get the camera, see how the tip of the lobe is pointing towards the intake side. Right there. So that means the valves are closed. This engine's at top dead center. I'm ready to do the test. Okay, so I've hooked up the tester to my air compressor line, and what I've done is I've set the pressure with no hose end on it, so it's all sealed to as close to zero as I can. Right. So a good way to check that the air regulator is working properly is that you can connect the spark plug extension hose to the end of that, so it's vent to atmosphere, and then take it off and see if the needle recovers back to zero, because what that will show is that it is set correctly. So now that I've got it all connected, I'm ready to test cylinder 1. So I'm going to screw in the fitting into cylinder 1, and I'm going to apply air pressure, see what it looks like. So we've got moderate leakage. Now do remember that this engine has 210,000 kilometers on it, so it's quite high mileage. So that's just saying that it's a worn out engine. It's not catastrophic, but you know, probably needs a little bit of a freshen up. So next cylinder to check is cylinder 5, because that's the next cylinder in the firing order. So I'm going to pop my little rod into the top of the cylinder 5 and bring that up to top dead center. So as you can see, as I rotate this ratchet, it's coming up, and once it stops moving up, then I know it's at top dead center. Nearly there, nearly there, and now it's not moving anymore, so must be at top dead center. Now I can hook the fitting to that. As so. And hook my tester up to it. As we can see, moderate leakage, pretty much exactly the same as cylinder 1. So next cylinder. So cylinder 3 is next. Same thing again. Put my rod into it and rotate the engine to top dead center. There it is. So Take the rod out, screw in the fitting, and let's see what it shows. Same thing in the moderate level, a little bit more than the others. Not hearing any massive leaks from the intake or exhaust side. Not seeing any bubbles out of the radiator. Not hearing anything coming out of the oil cap. So I think it's just worn out. Anyway, next cylinder. So cylinder 6 has been set to top dead center, because that's the next one in the firing order. Cylinder 6, screw in the fitting there, and then connect the gauge. As you can see, same thing, same level of leakage. So far it's looking like the engine's pretty balanced across all cylinders. Next cylinder. Alright, cylinder 2 is next. Screw in the fitting, connect gauge, same deal, still in the moderate level. So far it's roughly between 50 and 60% leak. So still in the moderate, not the best, but not too bad. No, nothing major inside. Alright, final cylinder. Alright, lucky last, cylinder 4. Screw in my... hook up the gauge. And once again, fairly balanced. So it's actually not bad. It indicates that the engine is, for its age, in not such bad condition. Compression test shows that everything's even across all the cylinders, which is good. Leak down test is also saying that everything is even across all cylinders. Yes, it is in the moderate level of leakage, but for the age of the engine, that is completely normal. What it means is that there's nothing that's very, very wrong with the engine. It's just normal wear and tear, which is great. So now I need to think of what am I going to do to this engine next. So part of my restoration as well is taking off all the bits and pieces that I can and cleaning them up and making them, or trying to make them look like new again. So here are the inner liners. As you can see, before and after, pretty big difference. Just like these, and these brackets for the bumper bar, I've just resprayed them in gloss black, sanded back the rust first, got rid of all the surface rust before spray painting them, and yeah, looking a lot nicer. So what I used was a bit of chemical guy stuff. It's not bad. Wish the can would have a bit of a spray pattern rather than a jet pattern. Just a bit harder to spread, but overall not too bad. So I've taken off the intercooler and degreased that. It's over in the corner here, drying. And boy, was she dirty and full of oil inside. I've also cleaned the under tray and all the wheel liners for the front. They're looking nice and shiny now, which is great. And the next thing I need to do is I've washed all of these parts, and I'm going to get rid of some of the surface rust and give them a coat of paint so that they look new again. Now I'm undecided on, do I put the intake on now or do I do it later? I do want to take the car for a drive. It's been a while, so we'll see. Till the next time.